Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. The Trump administration imposed new sanctions on Venezuela Thursday as President Trump repeated his threats to begin military strikes on land targets in Venezuela. The new sanctions target family members of President Nicolas Maduro, as well as 6 crude oil tankers and associated shipping companies. Meanwhile, Reuters reports the U.S. is preparing to intercept more ships transporting Venezuelan oil after it seized a massive Venezuelan oil tanker on Wednesday. Some Democratic lawmakers and at least one Republican have condemned the seizure, which Venezuela condemned as an act of piracy. Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen said the move shows the Trump administration's cover story that it's seeking to interdict drugs is a, quote, big lie. He added, quote, "This is just one more piece of evidence that this is really about regime change by force," unquote. However, the Senate's top Democrat, Minority Leader Senator Chuck Schumer, refused to say he opposes regime change in Venezuela. Schumer spoke with CNN's Jake Tapper Thursday.
Do you disagree with President Trump's ultimate goal of regime change in Venezuela?
Look, the bottom line is President Trump throws out so many different things in so many different ways. You don't even know what the heck he's talking about. You know, obviously, if Maduro would just flee on his own, everyone would like that. But we don't know what the heck he's up to when he talks about that. So it's very, you cannot say, I endorse this, I endorse that.
California Democratic Congressmember Ro Khanna blasted Schumer's comments, writing, quote, "Yes, Democrats oppose regime change war in Venezuela. Instead of wasting trillions on endless wars, we must invest in jobs, health care, and housing for Americans. Why is this hard? We need a new generation to lead our party with moral clarity and conviction," Congressmember Khanna wrote. In the Gaza Strip, at least 12 people were killed in the past 24 hours as torrential rains and floods descended on the besieged territory, collapsing shelters, makeshift tents, and what remained of homes and buildings damaged by Israel's relentless war. Among the victims are 3 children who died of hypothermia due to the winter storm. This comes as Israel's military continues to violate the U.S.-brokered ceasefire deal it agreed to October 10th. Israeli forces killed at least 2 Palestinians in Rafah on Wednesday. In the occupied West Bank, Israel's approved the establishment of nearly 800 new settler homes. The Israeli settlements are illegal under international law. Tens of millions of U.S. residents are set to see the cost of their health insurance plans skyrocket after the Senate rejected a bill that would have extended tax credits under the Affordable Care Act. On Thursday, 4 Republican senators sided with Democrats and independents who voted in favor of a 3-year extension of the health care subsidies. But the legislation failed on a vote of 51 to 48 after falling short of the 60 needed to break a Republican filibuster. Without a deal by December 31st, some 22 million people will likely see their premiums double on average. This is Georgia Democratic Senator Raphael Warnock.
Republicans today have taken a system that's already struggling and broken it down even more. And the consequences for ordinary people, many of them in their own red districts, will be that they will have to delay response to their health care. They will have to find a way to pay more higher premiums. And for many people, they will literally pay with their lives.
South Carolina public health officials say hundreds of people are in isolation or quarantine amidst a rapidly spreading measles outbreak in a northwestern region of the state with lower rates of vaccination. So far, 111 measles cases have been recorded, all but 6 of which occurred in unvaccinated people. Arizona and Utah are also experiencing a significant measles outbreak. Nationally, there have been almost 2,000 measles cases recorded in the United States this year, causing at least 3 deaths. The U.S. declared measles eliminated in the year 2000, but the disease has returned after vaccination rates fell during the COVID pandemic. A Democratic lawmaker from Michigan filed articles of impeachment Thursday against Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Congresswoman Haley Stevens accuses Kennedy of abdication of duty by restricting access to vaccines, spreading absurd conspiracies, and putting lives in danger.
RFK Jr. has turned his back on science, on public health, and on the American people. Under his watch, families are less safe, healthcare costs are skyrocketing, and life-saving research, including right here in Michigan, is being gutted.
Democratic leaders, including House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, have declined to co-sponsor the articles of impeachment. Meanwhile, the FDA is reportedly considering putting a black box warning on COVID vaccines, a warning reserved for drugs that can cause death. We'll have more on this story after headlines. We'll speak with a former top vaccine expert at the CDC who resigned in June. Republican lawmakers in Indiana have rejected a push by President Trump to redraw the state's congressional map ahead of next year's midterm elections. On Thursday, 21 state senators with the Republican majority crossed the aisle to side with Democrats opposing the mid-decade redistricting effort, which was aimed at giving all 9 of Indiana's congressional seats to Republicans. The upset vote came after some Republican lawmakers who opposed the plan described the violent threats they'd received from President Trump's supporters. Ahead of the vote, the advocacy branch of the Heritage Foundation issued a warning to Indiana lawmakers, quote, "If the Indiana Senate fails to pass the map, all federal funding will be stripped from the state, roads will not be paved, guards' bases will close, major projects will stop. These are the stakes, and every no vote will be to blame," they wrote. Kilmar Abrego Garcia has reunited with his family in Maryland after a federal judge ordered his immediate release from a Pennsylvania ICE jail Thursday. But Abrego Garcia has to check in with immigration officials today, just hours after U.S. District Judge Paula Zenas ruled against the Trump administration, writing, quote, "Since Abrego Garcia's return from wrongful detention in El Salvador, he's been redetained, again without lawful authority," she wrote. Abrego Garcia's case has been at the center of Trump's brutal crackdown on immigration. To see our coverage of his case, go to our website, democracynow.org. A U.S. citizen from Minnesota's Somali-American community speaking out after ICE agents racially profiled and wrongfully arrested him earlier this week in Minneapolis. Mubashir, who asked only to be identified by his first name, said he was on his lunch break Tuesday when masked federal agents tackled and pushed him. The 20-year-old informed the agents he was a U.S. citizen and could show them his passport, but instead he said the agents put him in a headlock, took him into custody, detained him for hours without access to water and medical care. Mubashir described his violent arrest during a press conference Wednesday.
All I did was step outside as a Somali American, and I just got chased by a masked person. The agent then, at one point, he didn't identify himself. He didn't say ICE, stop. I felt like I was getting assaulted. I was getting kidnapped, and that's exactly what it was. And the way they were treating me, it was inhumane. They dragged me across the road. They slammed me to the ground, choked me. That was uncalled for.
Federal immigration agents have arrested more than 400 people across Minnesota since Trump last week called Somali immigrants garbage in a racist tirade. On Capitol Hill, Democratic lawmakers repeatedly called on Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem to resign as they confronted her on Trump's immigration crackdown during a heated House Homeland Security Committee hearing Thursday. Noem stood defiant, defending Trump's nationwide raids, mass deportations, and the use of force by federal agents. Her opening statement was briefly interrupted by protesters, one of whom chanted, quote, "Get ICE off our streets, stop terrorizing our communities," unquote. Democratic lawmakers accuse Noem of lying and corruption. Meanwhile, Congressmember Delia Ramirez of Chicago, the daughter of Guatemalan immigrants, announced she's taking the first steps to impeach Noem. This is a portion of Ramirez's remarks to Noem.
You lied on the record. And you lied to members of this committee. You violated court orders by not turning around deportation flights bound for El Salvador, where we know that hundreds of people under your leadership have reported that they were raped, they were beaten, and they nearly died. And your agents used chemical weapons in Chicago despite court orders from District Court Judge Ellis forbidding their use.
We'll be joined by Congressmember Delia Ramirez later in the broadcast. The Justice Department's once again failed to bring an indictment against New York Attorney General Letitia James on charges she lied on a mortgage application. It's yet another blow to President Trump's campaign of retribution against his political enemies. On Thursday, a federal grand jury in Alexandria, Virginia, refused to indict James after a separate grand jury in Norfolk last week also rejected an indictment sought by the Justice Department. The House of Representatives voted Thursday to reverse President Trump's executive orders stripping 1 million unionized federal workers at 40 federal agencies of their collective bargaining rights. 20 Republicans joined Democrats to send the legislation to the Senate over the objections of House Republican leaders who opposed the bill. Randy Irwin, president of the National Federation of Federal Employees, wrote, quote, "The president cannot unilaterally strip working people of their constitutional freedom of association. In bipartisan fashion, Congress has asserted their authority to hold the president accountable for the biggest attack on workers that this country has ever seen," unquote. The Walt Disney Company announced Thursday it'll invest $1 billion in OpenAI after agreeing to allow users of the Sora video generation app to make videos with hundreds of copyrighted Disney characters. It's a first-of-its-kind move by a major studio coming 2 years after Hollywood screenwriters and actors went on strike to protect their livelihoods from generative AI. Responding to Disney's deal, the Writers Guild of America wrote, quote, "Companies, including OpenAI, have stolen vast libraries of works owned by the studios and created by WGA members and Hollywood labor to train their artificial intelligence systems. We've repeatedly called for the studios to take legal action to defend the valuable intellectual property we helped to create," unquote. And President Trump signed an executive order Thursday establishing a single national standard on artificial intelligence, blocking states from enacting their own AI regulations. The order directs the Justice Department set up an AI litigation task force, which would bring lawsuits against any state that passes new AI laws. It also directs the Commerce Secretary, Howard Lutnick, to look into withholding funding for rural broadband internet from states seeking to regulate AI. This comes after a New York Times investigation found Lutnick and his sons run a network of companies and industries ranging from cryptocurrencies to AI data centers, and that Lutnick has promoted policies supporting the construction of data centers while serving in government. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman in New York, joined by Democracy Now!'s Juan Gonzalez in Chicago. Hi, Juan.
Hi, Amy, and welcome to all of our listeners and viewers across the country and around the world.
Thanks for watching Democracy Now! On YouTube. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to make sure you never miss a video. And for more of our audience-supported journalism, go to democracynow.org, where you can download our news app, sign up for our newsletter, subscribe to the daily podcast, and so much more.